Hello, my name is Carl Holmgren, and this video is going to describe stacking storage boxes, a design that I've been working on. For each storage bin floor, you'll need two pieces of 1x8, 27¼ inches long. Glue the pieces together, edge to edge, to form the floor of each bin. But first, joint the edges that you want to glue. Always joint the two edges together and then match them together. If there's any error in the angle, the error will be repeated on both sides and it'll correct itself. Don't have a jointer? Same thing applies to a hand plane. Plane both edges of the boards to be glued at the same time. And the angle isn't quite perfect, nothing to worry about, it'll cancel out. No biscuits, no splines, no dowels, just straight edge to edge gluing with a thin beaded glue so you don't have too much squeeze out. These are the jointed edges. A little bit of wax paper. Rip the floor pieces, the 6 floor pieces. With a 3/4 inch dado stack, I cut grooves in the underside of each of the floor panels. I was able to reduce the weight from 5.0 pounds to 2.7 pounds. I cut a total of 7 grooves in the underside of each panel, stopping and starting well before each end to leave whole wood at each end. For each floor panel, I cut 2 3/4 by 3/4 by 7½ inch cross grain pieces. Cut from hardwood 6 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch by 26½ inch reinforcing. We need to glue a reinforcing strip onto the underside of each front edge. And then we need to glue on the underside at each end the 3/4 by 3/4 spacer strip, and spaced 3/8 from the end. This is to locate the bins from shifting side to side when they're stacked up. Now glue one at this end to complete the floor. For each storage box, we'll need 4 5½ by 13 inch pieces cut from 1x6 stock. 2 for each end. And for each storage box, we'll need 2 2½ inch by 13 inch pieces, 1 for each end, cut from 1x3 stock. Each end is made by gluing up a couple of pieces of 1x6 and a piece of 1x3, 5½, 2½, 5½ inches for a total of 13 inches in width. To provide for stacking, I'm moving the 2½ inch piece up 3/4 inch, and each end will nest against the one below it. I'm going to make 4 bins 13 inches high and 2 bins 15 inches high, just in case there's something larger to be stored that won't fit into the with a 13-inch high. 3/4 inch dado blade stack set 3/4 of an inch from the fence and set 3/8 of an inch high. Cut a groove near the bottom of the inside of each shelf, 3/4 of an inch from the bottom, 3/8 of an inch deep, for the floor to fit into. With the fence set about 2 inches from the blade, dado blade stack, the same 3/4 inch dado blade stack, and the blades set about 5/8 of an inch high. On the outside of each end piece, cut a handhold. And with 100 or 150 grit paper, the top edge of each finger grip slot. I'm cutting a rabbet on the back edge of each end for the back panel to fit into. So I've buried a dado stack in a sacrificial fence, and I'm just going to cut a dado in each pair of ends. This is when the ends become a right and a left end. So you need to be careful and do them in pairs. Sloping the points of the projections makes it a little bit easier to stack the boxes up so that they don't have to align quite so perfectly. Taper the inside as well. It'll help line up the boxes when they're being stacked. Just a little taper helps. At the front edge of the mortise or the groove for the floor, I need to put in a little hardwood space. The floor doesn't extend all the way to the front of the sides or the end pieces. It stops about 3/4 inch short because the front door uses up that space. So I need to glue in a 3/4 by 3/4 by 3/8 spacer. And one more, the back panel doesn't extend all the way to the top either. It comes up about 3/4 of an inch short of reaching the top. I need to add a little filler to the rabbet. I need to cut a notch on the inside of each end piece near the top. And the reason for that is, let me jump ahead a little bit here, I've got a partially completed door, is the notch will provide the stop for the lid. The lid is hinges near the back, and I've got a piece of dowel inserted into the front rail of the lid. And that'll stop the lid from falling all the way down. So, with that crude explanation, I've set up a router bit here, 5/8 high, 1/2 inch router bit, 1 inch from the fence, and I'll use the router to cut a notch on the inside of each left hand end piece, and then I'll reverse the stop block and cut a notch on the inside of each right hand end piece. We need to drill a hole in each end piece for the latch to engage that holds the front door closed. So I've set up the drill fence, a stop block, and the depth stop on the bit. So I'll drill a 1/2 inch hole partway through the material on each right-hand side piece. Then I'll reverse the stop on this side of the table and drill the same hole in every left-hand piece. From 1/8 inch plywood, cut the back panels. For the 13 inch high storage boxes, the back panel is 11.5 inches. From hardwood, cut a reinforcing strip 3/8 of an inch by 26.5 inches to reinforce the top edge of the back panel for each storage box. I'm using the bandsaw to make the hardwood go a little further. The thin kerf of the bandsaw blade wastes less of the wood. This is the 3/8 by 3/4 inch hardwood reinforcing strip, and we're going to glue it to the inside top edge of the back panel. I've cut a 24 inch piece off the end of a sheet of plywood, and I'm sawing off strips 9 inches and 11 inches for the front and the tops of the storage bins. To keep the storage boxes as light as possible and easy to handle, I'm going to make the top and front door out of 1/8 inch plywood, framed with 1 3/4 inch pine. And I'm going to use the bandsaw to rip them, because if I keep the kerf thin, I can get 3 pieces out of a 1x6. We need, for 6 boxes, we need 24 full-length pieces, 26.5 inches. When you finish cutting all the pieces for the frames, for the lids and the doors, we need to cut a notch, or cut a groove on the inside of each piece for the 1/8 inch plywood panels. And we do that by setting the fence approximately centered, so the cut will be approximately centered in the piece, and the blade is set 1/2 inch high. So by making 2 cuts, 1 in each direction, I end up making sure that the groove for the panel is exactly centered. We need to make a tenon on each short piece. So with the dado blade partially buried under a sacrificial fence and exactly 1/2 inch exposed, we can cut a tenon on each end. The object here is to kind of sneak up with the fit. So I'll gradually raise the blade and keep trying until we have a tenon that fits the long pieces, the groove in the long pieces. Okay, eventually we'll get to the point where a nice snug fit, and we can frame the 1/8 inch plywood panel. And I pre-painted the panel chalkboard green, the idea being that we can write on it with chalk what the contents of the storage bin are. Okay, a little persuasion and that we have a nice looking door. We need to round over the bottom corners of every door to provide clearance for the door to fold down when it opens. So I'm going to put a 1/4 round bit in my rotor table, do 2 passes, one to round over the corner on the front and one to round over the corner on the back, so you get a complete semicircle at the bottom edge. The back corner of the lid needs to be rounded off also, but only the underside. The lid only opens 90 degrees, so we only need to round off the bottom back corner of the lids. In order for the lid to stand, to open fully, we need to just take off with a hand plane a little bit of the top corner. So the lid will open a little bit past 90 degrees and stay standing open. Install a cove bit in the rotor table and cut a finger slot on the underside of each lid. To assemble the storage box, put the floor down on a couple of bar clamps, reinforcing strip towards the front. Grab a couple of end pieces. A little glue into the floor groove. Spread the glue with an acid brush. And assemble. Flush at the back edge. And tighten the clamps. Install the back. And I'll secure the back with some staples. Okay, turn it over once more. And toenail the floor into the sides. Okay, and it's ready for the top and the front. Doors and lids pivot on 1/8 inch by 3 finish nails. Just reduces the cost of hardware for the storage boxes. But locating the position for the hinge pins can be a little bit tricky. So here's my technique. I use a marking gauge set at 3/8 of an inch, half the thickness of the frames. And I scribe a line from each side. And of course, if everything's right, that should be the same line. But also scribe a line 3/8 from the end. The crosshairs of those two lines is the center of the circle formed by the semicircle at the bottom end of the door and the back end of the lid. So I'm going to drill a 1/8 inch hole at that mark, straight in till the chuck bottoms, and then I'm going to insert a nail a little bit longer than the exposed length of the drill bit that I've cut the head off, put it in backwards in this hole with the pointed end sticking out, and make a mark on the inside, let me get this right, on the inside of the sidewall. And I'm going to use a couple of 3/4 inch blocks and spacer blocks to help line up the door. And I'll just push firmly and make a small mark on the inside of the ends at each end. So you can see that drilling the holes here from these marks is going to be kind of tricky because it's pretty close to the edge of the floor. So here's the setup that I've come up with for drilling these holes from the inside out. An angle drill and an extension in a hex shanked 1/8 inch drill bit. So if you don't have the angled drill arrangement, here's another alternative. Just use an LP torch and heat a nail red hot and burn the hole. Okay, the lid and the door are hinging nicely. Next step is to mark the lid for the stop pins so that the lid doesn't fall down into the box when the door is opened. Just need to make a couple of marks. The notches are in the ends. After the lid is drilled for the stop pins, add a few drops of glue, drive in a 3/8 dowel, and cut the dowel off with about 3/8 to half an inch projecting. The door latches consist of a 3/8 inch dowel that'll slide into the hole in the end, and a little rubber slot for a handle, and an L-shaped notch so that the handle can swing down and lock the dowel in the extended position. To make this, we need to drill a 3/8 hole into the top frame of the door, lined up with the hole in the sidewall, and then route a slot an L-shaped slot for this little handle. We need to mark the door so we can drill in from the end for the latch pins. Drill a 3/8 inch diameter hole into the top end of each end of the door. The hole needs to be about 4 inches deep. And then sand a 3/8 dowel so it slides easily in the hole. To cut the slots for the handles for the latch pins, here's the setup I've come up with. I've got a fence to guide the door, got the front side down, and I've got another little auxiliary fence which will allow me to slide the door laterally. So, I need to set the fence width so that the router bit, a 1/4 inch router bit, will intersect the long hole that I've drilled in the top rail. And then I'm installing a stop block to limit the travel, limit the length of cut for the length of the slot. Okay, we've got a slot for the handle and a notch for it to drop down into to lock the plunger into lock position. Now I need to reverse the fences to do the other end. But I'll do all 6 doors on this end first, and then do a mirror image jig setup for the other end of each of the doors. Mark the position on the 3/8 dowel for the handle and drill a 3/16 hole partway through. Using glue very sparingly on the handle, which is a piece of 3/16 dowel, drive the dowel into the hole. With the door latching pin extended, cut it off so there's about 1/2 inch protruding. Just one final detail. I found some 15mm diameter wood beads at the craft store, and I'm going to glue them on as knobs on the dowels that I'm using for levers. And I'm going to use the rotary tool to nip off the extra. That wraps up the project. I was able to complete the 6 bins for less than $100 expense. I bought what the lumberyard calls whitewood. It could be either pine or spruce. I think it's mostly pine, for about $1 a board foot. And then I bought a couple of sheets of 1/8 inch birch plywood that's laminated onto cheap mahogany. Couldn't quite get all the 1/8 inch stuff out of one sheet of plywood, but I've got quite a bit left from the second sheet. One spray can of paint for the doors, and I think I'm kind of pleased with the results. Trying to keep the boxes really light, I managed to have each one weigh 6 kilograms, 13 pounds. So I'm all ready to put it to work to store my collection of National Geographic magazines, off-season clothes, decorations, holiday decorations, whatever. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.